Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a beacon of light and remarkable model for us Georgia State students here to launch WomenLead, Bayne.
Thank you very much. All right, that was a very kind and generous introduction, and I feel like I should just let you continue. I've got some slides here, and I'll just provide some background noise. But thank you very much. And Dean Phillips, thank you so much for inviting me, and Nancy, thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm grateful for the opportunity to see so many business leaders on this really important initiative, as well as students. You are the ones who are going to drive us forward, especially female leaders looking at where we're going as a country and as a globe. You are critical to the future of our communities, not just growing, but thriving. And so thank you for taking time out today to come here. As we were talking, Nancy and I, back and forth, and I do want to call out my teammate Yolanda White, who's with me, who's been a part of this, but this is Yolanda. We've worked together 3 different times, and we see each other all day, every day. But we were saying, what could we talk about in the short amount of time, and then I think we're going to have a panel, and you can ask anything you want of any of us. But we thought that we would put together just a few things. I've worked at Coke for 25 years. Just to give you a little more background, I did a great job, but I came to Atlanta with Coca-Cola 25 years ago. I was recruited out of my business school class at the Fuqua School at Duke. And I have worked in many positions. As you saw, I started at Coke in assistant brand management. I knew I wanted to go into marketing. My undergraduate degree was actually psychology. I was pre-med, and that phone call to my father was interesting when I said, "Dad, I'm no longer a pre-med candidate at Duke." And he said, "Really? And what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I really like psychology and economics." And he said, "That's interesting, darling. I really wonder what you're going to do with that." But so I began as an assistant brand manager on Diet Coke all those years ago. At that point in time at Coca-Cola, there were very few women. And I think I saw Muhtar's face and quotes up front, and I know he's been such an inspiration to so many corporate leaders and educators, as he made a very public commitment on his first year back as chairman, when he looked around Coca-Cola and said, "Look at my management teams and look at my general manager ranks," and there were just no women. When he started with his commitment, our most senior positions is 23% women. And if you know about the world's economy, about 70 to 80% of the world's buying decisions are actually made by women, especially in our products. So he said, how can I have my management teams and my bottlers not mirroring the face of the consumers that we want to have in our business and connected with our brands? And so he made a commitment then to develop a pipeline. We have women's forums. I sit on a Women's Leadership Council, where we literally, for a week a quarter, the top 15 women at Coke, we pack our bags, and amidst all the other global responsibilities for business, we come together purely to serve the women of our business units. So we went to Dubai last year, we went to Tokyo, and we sit and listen and learn from the younger women who are now in our pipeline as we've started to get a more diverse workforce, and we hear what's stopping them, what are the barriers for their continuing, why at certain middle management positions do women choose to leave when the complications potentially of caring for a sick parent or having a young family get to be too much. What can we do to better support them, and are their managers hearing them and listening to them? And so all of those programs, I give credit to Muhtar for really, from the top down and from the bottom up, a real commitment to the advancement of women, and I've certainly benefited from it and participated in it. And it's really exciting to see now. I know my department is about 65% women. fact, the men are fewer. We have, 35 nationalities in my group. Yolanda, you should come by. There's languages everywhere. We've got, it's an exciting and vibrant place, and we connect. My team works globally, so we're constantly connecting around the world to all of our operations as we do business in over 200 countries. But the face of Coca-Cola has dramatically changed, and I'm proud of it. And I'll talk to you a few things about what I've learned along the way as that's happened. In terms of roles, I think something, as a woman coming into Coca-Cola, one thing, it's a fairly simple business. You know, the stuff, we haven't changed it a lot. We did one time, and we learned about that. But it is also the world's largest distribution company in the world. It's larger than UPS, FedEx combined with the kinds of trucks and transportation we do every day in order to deliver 1.9 billion servings every single day all around the world. So that kind of connection, that kind of business gives you what I got, which was a huge variety of roles. Some of them were moving forward, some of them were moving backward. Some of them were lateral, but keeping a track of what you have learned, what you want your brand to look like, and going, you know what, I really haven't spent a lot of time in a customer management role. I've been doing all this great marketing strategy theory. I love it, and I really enjoy it, and you'll see later I do. But I then, at certain points in my career, said, I've got to go and face the customer, and I worked in our largest customer, McDonald's, for 4 years, back and forth to Chicago, go and see them and go around the world. But really understanding that those kinds of roles then give you the whole skill set to allow you to progress into more senior roles. But it's really the benefit of when I moved to Australia, and I did go back, I was born there, but I had the opportunity, and we went and lived for 4 years, to relearn our whole value chains with a different bottler, Coca-Cola Amatil. We covered the businesses of Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, and Indonesia. At the time, Indonesia went through a currency crisis while we were there, and we had to pull everything. And we were going into non-returnable, pull it all back out, go returnable to hit a price. So constantly taking roles that say, wow, I've never done that before. I don't, and as women, I may not have all the skills that say I'm the perfect candidate, but gosh, I'm willing to get out there and try it. And so I think that's something that is recurrent as you look at the stories of our senior leaders, is never be afraid to take on that new challenge or take something that looks slightly different from maybe where you've been before. And I guess that leads me to my point that through that, you understand the need to change and grow. And we're certainly a company that believes in that. We're 127 years old, and we'd like to be here for another 127 years, and I think we will be. So we assembled 5 little learnings that I'll go through 5 quick slides, and then again we'll have our Q&A, things that I've learned. The first one is about being honest with yourself about your brand and what you want to do. And this story, this picture is actually a picture of a woman named Mary Minnick who worked at our company. She was actually, I worked for her 3 different times, but she was my first boss at Coke. And I was 22 years old, and I was assistant brand manager on Diet Coke, and I had, come out of school. I worked really hard. I got the job, and my job in our annual business cycle was to analyze our daily drinkers. And so I had to go on the computer and look at a bunch of reports and figure out what had happened. And that was my piece of the annual business plan. And it was due on a Monday, and I walked into Mary's office, and I had done the assignment. I had analyzed the daily drinker base, and I gave her some thoughts. And she said, so this is what you have for me. And in the meantime, I was 22 years old. I was single. I was having fun. I had a fun weekend, and I delivered what she had asked for. And she looked at me, and she knew me pretty well by then, and she said, I know you have all the ability to do this job. I wonder if you have the ambition. And it rocked me to my core, because I've always been ambitious. I went through school fast. I skipped a year. I had gotten great grades. I had worked so hard. And someone just said, I wonder if you have ambition. And since then, I said, wow, what kind of brand and legacy am I creating? And am I really stepping forward? And it was such a moment of her modeling, which now I believe when I mentor, it was a little rough what she said, but helped me think about when I work with and around my colleagues, people who work for me, am I inspiring them to really deliver their best every day? And she certainly did it for me. I've never forgotten the meeting because I got completely flustered and realized completing the play was not enough. And in order to really be the kind of leader I wanted to be, I needed to work as hard as I could in every part of my life, instead of sort of, here's the assignment, I've got to, go and have some fun. So it was a great lesson taught to me by a woman who took the time to tell me what she could see that I was thinking people couldn't really see. So that would be the first one, is be honest with yourself about what's going on. The second is understand social norms. And I'm going to talk more about corporate environments here. And when I came into Coke, I mean, literally I came to work in the same color suit, hose, heels. Everyone wore hose and heels. And those little round ties we used to wear in 1989. All the women wore these little. And I grew up, my father was CEO of a multinational corporation. My mother was an artist. And I watched my father for all those years come home in a suit. And he went to work in a suit, and I knew how he conducted himself. And what I realized was, as I came into the workforce and it wasn't diverse, I became like him. I was honestly role-playing. And it took me a long time to learn that, yes, you have to operate within the guidelines of your business. But I was so much more impactful once I realized that I should bring myself to work and not my father to work. And so it really happened, honestly. I had been with the company almost 10 years of being my dad, and I had a baby, and I was living in Australia with Coke, and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be the most over-prepared in every meeting. I couldn't have every note written out perfectly. I couldn't have more information about the topic than everyone around me. And what I found, as I became more vulnerable and I was tired, and I didn't have all the notes, and I needed to lean on my hugely talented team around me, I became a better leader, and I became a better manager. But it took me literally being up all night with a baby in my arms to come to work as a better manager and leader. And my team reacted, and when I left, every time I leave a job, I tell my team, all right, I want you to tell me what I can do better, because you don't work for me anymore, so you can say anything. And it was actually a male leader said, one of my leaders, he said, gosh, you know what? You were so much better after you went and had that baby. So I think I became more open, understanding, and vulnerable, and I was able to bring then the energy of my team into a much more impactful place. The next thing that we were talking about is learning to really accept your failures and learn from them. And so I was just thinking about failures. I can think of one, actually. I did just down the road. We were working. I was assigned a project. It was an after-school project. We sometimes do that at Coke. It's called you have your job, and then you get a stretch assignment. And so I was working on an after-school assignment that was given to me to say, how could we create as much value as there is in our bottle, and how can you create value around that amazing distribution system, the amounts of points of touch we have with consumers every day. And we thought and we thought and we worked, and I had a fun cross-functional group of people who were working after school as well with me. And we came up with a number of ideas, but one of the ones we came up with was a thing that we called vendotainment, and it was a bad idea. We thought it was just when mobile music was coming on, and we figured, gosh, well, what do we have? We have these vending machines everywhere. They have electricity. People didn't have wireless everywhere. We could put wireless in there. We could draw people to them. We could have partnerships with music studios. People can download music. We can play our commercials on them. They become media outlets. We're basically going to invent the Coke Broadcast Network. And so we went and built some prototypes, and we said, gosh, where should we put them? And we put them just down the road across the street from our campus in Georgia Tech. We were like, great, engineers. These kids are going to be so into it. Well, they were on for about a month, and after that we kept going over and doing research. Why aren't the sales, but why aren't all of our projections? And all you had to do was listen. And the students were like, I'm tired. It's the morning. I need a cold Coke and to go away. And this machine keeps talking to me and playing music at me. And all of the vendors around the machine were like, oh my gosh, if I hear that Coke commercial one more time. So they turned the sound off. And it was a complete disaster of us believing, well, it can do all these things, then let's make it do it. And what I learned from that, and learning from that mistake, was keep it simple and understand the value proposition to your consumer. They know, not you know. We did create, out of that effort, a program called My Coke Rewards. It is the largest fast-moving consumer products goods loyalty program in the world. We have 22 million Americans registered, which is 1/5 of the buying public, and an active two-way dialogue. So that was one out of that after-school team that did work. But that was something people wanted. So on every can, and every cap, you'll find a code. And with that, you can get access to the treasure of Coca-Cola, whether it's a movie pass for you and your friends at one of our theater exclusive partnerships like AMC or Parkway Point, or calling the NCAA Final Four game with Jim Nantz in the booth. So it was a way to unlock, what we tried to do was unlock the value around our brands. But we actually listened, and people were willing to enter codes and do that, but not have vending machines that bothered them. So that was a big learning, but learning from your failures. This next one is more for, as you think about, I know as I entered the workforce and I looked around, I was single. I didn't know if I wasn't dating. But over time, I knew that I wanted to have a family. It was important to me. And I wondered, how do you get going on your leadership track and then figure out how to have babies and take care of little people? And it's not easy, and there are some critical years, and I had some amazing friends. Something that happened at Coca-Cola as more women came in, we helped each other. We even have a thing called a nanny network, which is, and all of my nannies have come from word of mouth, because you need babysitters. It's the #1, I was just at the AWF, it's the #1 blocker for women of any socioeconomic class. And we were talking in Atlanta today of women stuck in multi-generational poverty. The #1 barrier to them getting out is lack of childcare. And so getting back to my Coke story, so we have a nanny network, and basically all of my babysitters and nannies come from this, and it's women who have found someone who's leaving a family or found someone who's great who needs full-time, and we share in our Coke circle women we know who have kids the same age. So I found that there was support, but I also found, like I was talking about how exhausted I was in Australia when I became a good manager, the idea of balance and doing everything at 150, 110%, it makes no mathematical sense. There's only one of you, and you can only give 100% of your life to something. So at work, I give 100% of my life and focus. And at home with my children and my husband, I try to, and my friends, I do the same. And I actually ask my teammates to do the same. I try to model that. I try not to send hundreds of emails on Saturdays and Sundays. And if I do, I don't expect responses. It's just I was thinking about things. I go home, I leave the office, I have dinner with my family. Sometimes I come on later at night. Some of my younger folks like to work through dinner, and they're off the grid from 8 o'clock on. I want them to. They are better business people, and they're far better marketers by getting out of our offices and into their lives, and they bring back the richness of their individual experiences to our office. This is a picture, this is a funny picture, I sent it to Yolanda. That's my husband and my 2 children. We do, at home, I found I've had to find balance there too, because working as hard as we do in the day and then coming home, oftentimes as a mom, I take on more of the responsibilities of the whole family. So this is Sunday after dinner, and who's cleaning up the kitchen while I watch Scandal on the couch? That's a true story. And I texted, I had to run in the kitchen and take it, because if they saw me, they would have all stopped. So I ran back to the couch and got back to Scandal, which I had missed on Thursday. So finding balance, not just work-life, but then even in your own private life, that you rejuvenate yourself. Because I have seen through different stages of a woman's development as leaders, you just get tired and you get burnt out, and you have to find the time and have the discipline around getting rest, around having relationships that matter outside of work, and using them for support and guidance, because you'll have mentor circles in work, but you need mentorship outside of work too for your whole life. And so a lot of the discipline you put around those relationships you cultivate in the workplace, you need to put that, it doesn't just happen outside by accident. It's about investing in that and in yourself and in your what's important to you. So, and then the final one, I think it's the final one, was getting to know people. I talked a little bit about cultivating relationships, but I really find I can fill my whole schedule every day with meetings that run for an hour from the minute I arrive till the minute I leave with tight agenda items, and we're just busy. Or you can schedule time in between meetings. You can walk around and talk to people. You can book meetings on your calendar or lunches with people you haven't seen. And again, I've had to do that to get to know my team, to build their trust, and to learn together how we can propel the business with the best thinking. My system, that's my bottlers, and we are a franchise system. They have a different P&L, and understanding what I'm trying to get them to do from their view takes really walking in their shoes. So taking the time to understand not just what you want to sell, but why someone looking at you across the room or the table or the negotiating floor would want to partner with you, whether it's a customer or a system partner, is critical. And then finally, your consumers, and getting to know them really well. I talked a little bit about vendotainment, but we invest a lot of time and money getting out. I was just in Shanghai a week ago and Tokyo. And in Tokyo, I went into the home of a young family and met a mom and her two boys, and they literally lived in an apartment that was the size of half of this stage, with beds that pulled down at night and rolled back up. Boys were doing beautifully academically. They were both running off to catch the tube to soccer. It was amazing. And in China, I sat and listened to 4 college boys who were just had arrived in college, and you heard them as in China, you have to take a big test to be allowed to go to college. If you pass it, then you're in. But then suddenly the pressure starts building for what are you going to do when you get out? And especially for boys, how do you find a mate? These kids have grown up alone. They are not used to talking to other people. They're not used to living as students. They've been surrounded by parents and grandparents. And they're hearing their struggles and how we did a program called Share a Coke. And we did it here in China, we did it. And people were using it to give to each other because it helped them introduce each other to each other. And we never planned it for that, but it really was beneficial to them to help starting to learn how to have conversations and share their names with each other. And so with that, the final piece I'll give you is getting to know your consumers and your system really well allows you to take risks that can drive to performance and things that you didn't think were possible. And I'm going to show you one commercial now that I had a lot to do with in my last job when I was head of North America brands. We ran this spot in the Super Bowl. It created a huge amount of discussion publicly and created trajectory of business change and engagement in our brands, and finally in daily drinkers of Coke, which was critical, that really had a message that was true to our brand, which are the brand values of inclusion and connection, but told in a way that was important for people to hear right now. And so with that, I'll close with this commercial. It's called It's Beautiful, and it's the story of America. And I think it's something, they're all Coke moments, you'll see. These are the lives of 7 different groups of people. We had an open cast open call audition in 5 cities, and we listened to people tell their stories, and then we sent film crews with them. And we put this together, and they're the voices of 7 American girls who know 2 languages. That was a big controversial point, that we were singing what people thought was the national anthem. It's not. It's America the Beautiful. But there are 7 girls singing and they all speak English, and then they speak another language, which is one of the amazing things about this country. And so with that, I'll run the spot, and then I think we're going to go to panel. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Teddy.